All right, we are here to talk this morning about fostering social and emotional skills. And because we're all early childhood educators or administrators or parents, I want us to be really comfortable and have lots of fun. Like Dr. Hetzel was mentioning, feel free to grab food, water, make yourselves comfortable, use the restroom as needed. And we are actually going to start with doing a little singing and dancing. If you've ever seen me in a workshop before, it's always the first thing we do because we're early childhood people. So, all right, I'm going to actually have a stand up. We're going to do some singing and dancing, sing a good morning song, and then we'll go over our agenda for the day and our objectives and get started. All right, everyone reach for the sky real quickly. Make sure you get a good big stretch. This also help keep us awake for the program, so that's an added bonus. All right, the words should be up on the screen for you. Let's see. All right. Give yourselves a round of applause. Great job. Take a deep breath. Or maybe I'm the only one that has to do that. All right. Well, I wanted to welcome you again. We're going to talk about our agenda for the day. And I did just want to commend you for coming and taking time on your Saturday. I know it's the beginning of the school year for a lot of us. So we have a lot going on. So I appreciate you coming to learn more about these invaluable skills that hopefully we can teach our children and help create that fostering, caring classroom environment for our students. Our agenda for today, just so we know what's going to be happening, we're going to go over our objectives. We're going to talk about the importance of social and emotional skills. I think it's really important for us to, am I doing something wrong? Sorry, yes? The sound guy can boss me around if he needs to, if I'm doing something wrong to make that funny sound. We are going to talk about the importance of social and emotional skills because I think it's key for us to identify why those skills need to be intentionally taught in our classrooms. We are also going to talk about the foundations for teaching social and emotional skills before we can get into the really practical, fun, how do we teach social and emotional skills. There's some foundational things that we need to make sure that we're establishing in our classrooms. And then we are going to take a break from 10:30 to 10:45. We are going to talk about social skills development, emotional skills development, and then at 11:40, we will have questions and closing. Am I still doing something wrong with this mic? I hear that sound? No? All right. Is it only distracting to me? If so, that's fine. All right, let's talk real quickly about our objectives. The first thing I would like for us to do, and just like you have objectives with your students, right? Or do we all have lesson plans and objectives, things that we want to accomplish each and every day? We have objectives for today. The first objective is I'd like for us to understand the importance of intentionally teaching social and emotional skills in early childhood. I don't know about for you guys, but for us at my school, teaching things like letters and numbers and name recognition kind of was ingrained in what we do and comes second nature. I think really being intentional about working social and emotional skills curriculum into our lesson plans and into our circle times and our daily experiences takes a little bit more effort and intent. It doesn't always come as naturally to us. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, now I can't use my hands as much. Thank you. So we're going to talk about the importance of that. We're going to learn practical strategies for forming positive relationships with children and families as a foundation for social and emotional skills development. It's going to be really important in laying that foundation so that we can teach these skills with the children and parents and help them understand the value of these skills in our classrooms. We are going to learn and practice ways to help children develop these social and emotional skills. So I want to leave you today with really practical strategies, things that you can take into your classrooms on Monday and begin to utilize. And of course, we're going to have fun because we're early childhood educators and parents, and that's our job. That's what we do, right? Raise your hand if you love your job or love your children. Good. We are all in the right place then. Okay. Let me see a wiggly thumbs up if that sounds like good objectives. Are we all in agreement? All right. Perfect. Moving on then. Let's spend just a few minutes talking about why we should focus on social and emotional skills in our curriculum. Like I was mentioning before, I think as early childhood educators and administrators, it comes very second nature to us to teach curriculum about letters and numbers, and we have all of these skills that our students need to know before they enter into kindergarten, or if you are a kindergarten or first grade teacher, the skills that our students need to enter into the next grade level. But oftentimes, we forget that in order to be able to gather those skills, apply them, and retain them, they need to be socially and emotionally competent. And more importantly, I'm sure we've met individuals who have this really great brain knowledge and they're very, very smart and they know a lot, but they have a really hard time relating or working well with other people. Does anybody know people like that? And sometimes it's difficult because we want them to be able to share those skills and work collaboratively, especially with the onset of Common Core in our schools. It's a very collaborative effort that we're looking for from our students. So we want them to be able to, not only in school, utilize these social and emotional skills, but obviously with their family members, and then in the future with work as well. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about the brain because obviously that's a big part of where our social and emotional skills come together, and also where we see some of our munchkins have those skills fall apart, right? Because they have that very quick trigger and they maybe lack impulse control or self-control. Does anyone have any students like that here? I forgot to preface by saying, did anybody come here for that one student who has that lack of impulse control? Okay. I know for myself as a teacher, when I saw things like this on the agenda, I had that student who I was coming for because there was going to be a magical solution to make that student be perfect in my classroom, right? I wish I had a magical solution. I hope that what we'll have today is close to magic, but what we will discuss is that these strategies are going to take time, effort, intentionality, and a wide, diverse range of skills and strategies to work with the different types of students that we have. So hopefully you'll find that this is close to magic. I don't know if Monday I can guarantee that that child will be socially and emotionally competent, but hopefully by the end of the school year at the very least for you. If we can all read the quote together, we talked in active learning. If any of you were at the ACSI active learning conference, we talked about retaining information. And a lot of times when you see something and hear something, you'll retain less of that information than when we hear, see, and say what we're what we're talking about. So if we can read that quote together, so it will hopefully resonate with us a little bit more. We'll read it together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Research shows that children who suffer from poor peer interactions and adult-child relationships are at risk for school failure. Has anyone ever heard these types of statistics before? Just how important your role is with early childhood and the children that you're reaching? Research does show us that those relationships that you form with the child and the relationships that they have with their peers is very indicative of how well they'll do in school beyond the years of preschool and early childhood, as well as how well they'll do in life in general. So I wanted to, again, commend you for the important role that you play and applaud you for what you're doing with your children, because it's an amazing impact that you're having on them. All right, our next quote, we'll read it together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Social and emotional learning can reduce aggression and emotional distress among students and improve positive attitudes towards self and others. So again, we just are seeing more research about the importance of those social and emotional skills. And we've seen those children who have aggression and emotional distress. It does affect the learning environment in our entire classroom, right? Not only for that child, but for all of the children in our room. So it really behooves us to spend time intentionally teaching to these skills. All right, I'll read this next one for us, just since it's a long quote. Okay, I love this quote that really is great for parents. If you ever have parents tell you that maybe your children play too much in your classroom, has anybody ever heard that? That all the children do is play. We know in early childhood that it's developmentally appropriate to provide active learning strategies for our students. Of course, we don't want to provide an environment where it's all open-ended play all the time, and we'll talk a little bit about our daily schedule in just a minute. But we want our kids to be active, and especially for social and emotional skills, they have to be interacting with each other and practicing those skills. We're also going to see for those parents who maybe think that it's not the best thing to have their children be playing in the classroom, we're going to see how it relates to all of the other areas of the brain that they might value a little bit more, such as reading and writing. All right, so the California Preschool Curriculum Framework says the developing brain is not neatly divided into separate areas governing learning, thinking, and emotions. Instead, it is a highly interconnected organ with different regions influencing and being affected by others. This means, for example, that young children who experience emotional challenges are less ready for learning because brain regions related to memory are being affected by other regions governing emotion. This is a great quote to support our active learning strategies and implementing social and emotional skills curriculum in our classrooms, right? Wiggly thumbs up if we agree. Okay, so in order to understand how the brain works, we honestly could spend years of research, first off, and about 10 hours today learning basic brain functions and operations. We're going to spend maybe about 7 to 10 minutes talking about the brain. So it's going to be a quick overview, but I hope it'll really set that stage and foundation, because this quote, I think, is really indicative of how much the brain is going to affect what our children are capable of doing and how they learn. So let's take a look at the brain. That's what it looks like, right? Daniel Siegel is a researcher from UCLA. Has anybody ever heard of him or read any of his books or research? He has a lot of great articles that are research-based, and so they're very, very hard to read. He has also written lots of books, though, and one I wanted to recommend called The Whole Brain Child. That's going to have a lot more information about the brain for you. It's written for parents, but I always read parent books and apply those strategies to the classroom because we're with our munchkins for a long part of the day, right? So you're sort of like partner parents, right? So the whole brain child is actually where a lot of these principles are from. And what Daniel Siegel discusses is we have two sides of the brain. We have the left brain and the right brain. Have you heard that concept before? Raise your hand. And we've probably heard that some people tend to be either more left brain dominant. Some people tend to be more right brain dominant. Raise your hand if you have heard of this concept and you think you're more right brain dominant. All right. How about if you've heard this concept and you think you're more left brain dominant? All right, and then we're going to do a quick question after we discuss this. So on the left side, we see that it's later to develop, the left side of the brain. It's the logical, linguistic, literal, lineal, concerned with the outside world, likes to analyze, likes lists, wants to know why, connects with outer experiences. That's the left side of the brain. The right side of the brain is quicker to develop. It's holistic. It's where we get those gut feelings, the nonverbal, autobiographical, concerned with the inner world, cares about the big picture and feelings and emotions, soothes self. It's where the heart sends signals to, and it's concerned with the whole. So we see up here that it mentions that the right brain is quicker to develop. So what we wanted to highlight is just the fact that with our early childhood students and children that we have at home, they're going to tend to be more right brain dominant because that's what's developing first in life. That's why we see those really quick reactions and tantrums and impulse control issues, because that left side of the brain that's working on all of those logical processes, it's not as developed. So just to be able to be cognizant of that and aware of that fact. So when we're dealing with our students, understanding that a lot of what we're going to need to do in the beginning is working on reaching that right side of the brain, developing it, and helping it connect to the logical part of the brain. And we're going to spend the second half of the workshop spending all sorts of time about the practical ways that we're going to do that. How are we going to reach that right side of the brain that's so dominant in our munchkins? Daniel Siegel also has another version of a brain image that's great for kids to be able to talk about, especially kids ages 5 to 9. He talks about the brain as a house, and he talks about it as having an upstairs and a downstairs. And as you can see on the screen, sorry, I wish I had one screen so I could use my handy dandy laser doesn't even work, huh? On that screen. Okay, well, I'll point with my hand if that's okay for you guys then. You can see on the bottom here, we have our brain stems. So that's our most basic form of operation of our brain. It's where we get our heartbeat, our breathing, those very basic brain or body operations. Over in the middle of the house, starting to be in the upstairs, we have the limbic system. It's where we get our emotions and our learning, and then our most advanced functions of the brain happen in the very upstairs of the house. It's in the cortex. It's where we have logic, reasoning, and impulse control. So what we're going to see is I'm going to have Daniel Siegel explain to you his concept of the brain, because I think he can do it a little bit better than I can. He's going to give us a really good visual aid for this upstairs, downstairs, and talk about how when we don't have the connection between that upstairs, that logical part of the brain, and the downstairs where we're doing our most basic functions, why it creates the impulses that it might create in us. Can everyone think of a time and remember when you feel really angry and upset? Almost like we hear the saying, seeing red. Can anyone think of a time? You guys are all so emotionally competent. No one ever gets angry here. That's great. All right, so we've had those moments where you can feel the tension in your body, and what's happening in that moment is all of the blood and oxygen that you need to be doing your logical thinking and reasoning is down in the downstairs. It's not in the upstairs. So we're going to talk a little bit about not this afternoon, but in the second part of our session, how we can help kids make sure that they have those calming strategies and techniques so they can get back to connecting that brain. All right, let's see a little bit about Daniel Siegel's brain model. You're going to do it with him too, because I want to make sure we're practicing it with our hands. So when he's doing something, if you guys want to hold up your hand real quickly, give me 4 in the air. Perfect. All right, when he's doing his brain model, I want us to practice with him too so we can see what it feels like.
One of the most rewarding experiences for me has been to study brain science and apply it to the experience of parenting. And the hand model of the brain that I use to teach parents is very useful to understand that. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your palm, put your fingers over the top, this is a very useful model of the brain. And when we can actually see in front of us what's going on in the brain, we can change what the brain does. So let me walk you through very basically what happens in this brain and the structures in it. And it goes like this. The spinal cord comes up, representing the wrist, and then you have coming up into the skull, the brain stem and the limbic area, which work together to help regulate arousal and your emotions and the way you have a fight, flight, freeze response. These are below the cortex, the limbic and brainstem areas, and the cortex is this higher part of the brain that allows us to perceive the outside world, to think and reason. And this frontmost part of the brain, right behind your forehead, so the person's oriented like this, is actually the part that regulates the subcortical, limbic, and brainstem areas. This regulation is very important because sometimes you can have all sorts of things happen in our life. We're tired, we're exhausted, someone pushes a particular emotional button, and we can flip our lids. So rather than being tuned in and connected and balanced and flexible, we can lose all of that flexibility, even lose moral reasoning, and act in ways that are terrifying to others, including our children. Now, you can actually bring yourself back online and come back to the high road and make a repair with your child, and that's important to explain to them. And you can also use this hand model of the brain to explain to children, even as young as 5 and 6, how to understand when their emotions are rising up from the brainstem and limbic areas here, and how it's overriding the prefrontal area and making it so they may be about to flip their lids. So I've had kids come tell me that they're about to go flip their lids and they need a break. They need a timeout. And by even just naming that, they can tame it. And that's the power of using the hand model for ourselves and our children to help us all make sense of what goes on in the emotional communication that we have in the course of day-to-day life.
All right. How great would that be? Oh, sorry, I turned my mic off. Was I not supposed to do that? Yay. How great would that be if we could have the munchkins in our class or our children at home or maybe our spouses be able to tell us when they feel like they're going to flip their lid or when their lid is flipped. And we've identified, like I mentioned before, some of those moments when you can feel that extreme anger. Are you hearing anything and really thinking about anything, processing information logically when you're in that moment? No. Can I get a sign yes or a sign no? No. We're not. So what, like I mentioned before, we're going to do is talk about how do we get children to those calming strategies, work on that impulse control and self-control, because that's a big part of that brain. But I love that model of being able to show the children what their brain looks like and helping them to identify that as well. Before we can move on to the kids, though, I think it's important for us to recognize that we are humans, and as teachers, there are things that make us flip our lid, right? There's different student behaviors or parent behaviors or maybe colleague behaviors that just instantly push our emotional hot buttons. I want us to be able to spend just a few minutes identifying what those things are that make you flip your lid, and then what are some of the strategies that you've gained to help calm yourself, reconnect your brain. So what are some things that you use, whether it's jogging or listening to music, to reconnect your upstairs brain to your downstairs brain? We'll take just about 3 minutes to do that, and we are going to think, pair, share early childhood style. Has everyone heard of the term think, pair, share before? It's a great way to get children to work with each other and adults to work with each other. For young children, I've seen students as young as 4 years old be able to think, pair, share. And one of the ways we do that is to be able to use visual aids. So you all should have either an ear or a mouth in front of you, and you should have someone sitting next to you who has a corresponding color. Because with our students, sometimes if we say think, pair, share, if we tried that with 24 4-year-olds, how well do we think that would go? Maybe not so great, right? We'd have 24 4-year-olds all talking at the same time. So we have these visual aids so we can teach our children, when you have the ear, you are listening. When you have the mouth, you are talking. And then you're going to switch with your partner. So everyone's going to get a turn to talk, or each pair, and everyone's going to get a turn to listen. So we're going to pair share. Feel free to take these home and again, utilize them with colleagues, spouses who maybe need to work on that visual representation of listening and then talking. Those will be yours to enjoy. All right, we will take just about 3 minutes. I want you to think first, then share with your partner.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.